So, all right, perfect. So, thank you guys for jumping on. My name is Matt Danaher. I am the creator of SoccerPulse. One of the reasons I built this app is I wanted to give coaches on a, maybe a minimum budget, the data that they need to keep players healthy, to have training at a high level, and to really make the environment more professional. So the goal of this webinar is going to be to talk about colleges in particular and how to best implement the app. But obviously, if you guys have other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them for you. So I'm just going to share my screen really quick. The goal of today is going to be give a quick overview of how the app works. There are tutorials online that you can watch, but sometimes it's obviously easier to just see it in person. So what you're seeing right now on this side of the screen is the player version of the app. So this is, if I was to log into a player account, this is what I would see on my end. So I've got my status, I've got my calendar, I've got any IDPs I put in, I've got my performance, and I've got the leaderboard of the team. So the area of the app that players are going to spend their most time on is the wellness reports. So when the players tap my status, this is what's going to pop up on their app. It's going to ask them, what's your soreness, energy, stress, sleep, and mood on a scale of 1 to 10. And these values are always preset from the prior report. So they're always saying, in relation to today, this is how or in relation to yesterday, this is how I feel today. If a player is particularly sore, they can indicate an area of soreness. Obviously, you get their energy, stress, sleep, and mood is new. So this used to be just a happy, medium, or sad face. We've recently made it emojis. So you can say you're very happy, content, okay, annoyed, nervous, just to give a little bit more insight into how the player is feeling. The values up here, so soreness, energy, stress, and sleep, these 4 are used to produce the readiness score, and you can actually customize which you care more about. I'll show you how to do that towards the end of the tutorial, but we don't factor mood into their overall readiness score. At the bottom here, you can see add comment, and you can also add any active injuries that the player has. So this is new. We've completely overhauled this. It used to be that you would add an injury and it was, just kind of tied to that wellness report. Now, when a player puts in an injury, or a coach can add it as well, you can indicate if it was a contact or non-contact injury. And you can also indicate when it started and when the player is expected to return. And if you don't know that, obviously you would just leave that blank. So there's a lot more data that you can collect from this. And ultimately, the goal of SoccerPulse is to reduce the number of soft tissue injuries and non-contact injuries. So this is a way of keeping track of that. So that's something the players can enter on their wellness report. And once they submit it, it's going to add to their streak, hopefully as a way to incentivize them to put more time into the app and be diligent with it. And then also it's going to increase their rank. Obviously, this is a test account, so somehow we're at rank 50. This is the view that the players will see the most. So this is their my status view. So you've got their readiness score, you've got any performance events that they've either participated in or entered themselves, and then you've got their training load. So with any of these, you can double click on them, and there's a nice tutorial that shows you what each of the values means and how it's calculated. So it's the same for readiness, same for training load. What you'll tend to see with training load at the beginning of the season, especially with college programs, is you're going to see a very high injury risk. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, if the players have not put in any individual events, the app is not going to know that they've actually been training over the month. So the way to make this more accurate is to have your players put in their training events in the lead up to preseason. So there is a chronic load here. So if this chronic load is really low, the injury risk is going to go really high. But ideally, after 28 days, you've got a decent chronic load. And now we actually know, in comparison to their acute load over 7 days, what their actual risk of injury is. So if you see a lot of injury risk in the first week of preseason, don't freak out. It's really just because the players have not accumulated a high chronic load. Hopefully that's because the data has not been entered and not because they haven't been doing anything. So that is the My Status view. So obviously you've got your calendar where players can respond to events. We've got IDPs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then that performance view is what you guys just saw. So before I jump to the coach view, does anyone have any questions on the player side of the app? No, I think we're good. The other thing that I actually didn't show is how I'll actually show it really quick. We'll show how a player can enter an event. So let's go add event. We'll select a template and we're going to pick, let's do today so I can show you how RPEs are entered. So let's do 8 a.m. We're going to create this event. It's going to populate in our calendar. And this is what the players are going to see after training and after game. So this is the post event report. This is where they're going to enter their RPEs, their minutes trained, and they can also rate themselves on how they thought they played. When the event is an individual event, the players can notify you that they've completed it, or they can turn it off. But other than that, this is pretty much the same as when a team event finishes. So this is what the players are going to see. For the RPEs, the app does a really good job of explaining what each of these levels is. So as we get to maximum effort, complete exhaustion, hopefully the players will also begin to understand, the difference between a 2 and a 5 and then a 9, because obviously this is subjective data, but hopefully they understand it's not how hard you worked, it's how difficult was it for you. And obviously they can also adjust minutes played, and if they didn't participate, they would just hit did not play in that event. So let's jump to settings first. So to get the most out of the app from the player side of things, it really needs to be that they have notifications turned on, and you really want them to, in their settings, save a time for them to submit a wellness report. This is going to send a notification locally to their device to put in a wellness report, which means that you don't have to prompt them to do it. And I found that the players that get the most out of SoccerPulse, that are the best at putting in their wellness reports consistently, they're the ones that have obviously notifications turned on, but also they've gone in here and they've saved a notification to go out to them at the appropriate time. So best practices for wellness reporting, I would say, is probably going to be in the morning. I would say at least an hour and a half before training. So if you train at 8 a.m., I would try and get those wellness reports in by 6:30. If you train in the evening, I would say by noon, you should really know where they're at. And hopefully with that data, you can either make minor adjustments to training, or you can start to understand the baselines of your players, and then look for outliers. So for example, if I have a player who usually reports a 4 for soreness, if I all of a sudden see that, it goes up to a 5, I'm not too concerned. But if I know a player is usually around a 1 or a 2, and now they're reporting 5 or 6, now it's maybe an area of concern because they're outside of what they usually report. So to get the most out of it, you really want the players to be consistent. You want them to put it in on their off days as well, not just days when they have training. And you really want to start to get to know those players in terms of what their baselines are, things like that. So let's jump out of here. Let's go into a coach account. So I'll pull up my account. And let's jump to a team. So we're going to quickly look at the my status view. So this is all the wellness reports that have come in. I can see them sorted from top to bottom. If a player is not put one in, obviously, they're going to go to the very, very bottom. Any changes from the prior report, you're going to see on the side here. So for the player at the top here, Leighton, she's reporting that she slept a little bit worse than she did yesterday. So anything pointed down in red is a negative change. Anything pointed up in green is a positive change. And if you click on any of these players, you'll be brought to that exact same view that we were at before with that player account, where it shows you the calendar, all the wellness reports they put in, and any training events that they've participated. Your best friend is going to be this alert button down here in the corner. So tapping that is going to allow you to send out a push notification to hopefully all the players that have not submitted. And that's going to help you obviously keep those players on track and putting in their wellness reports. It's better if they have a little bit of, ownership and they put them in themselves. But if it's, an hour before training, you need to know that's the button you're going to hit. And then also here, you're going to see your injuries. So this is new. Again, I talked about, we kind of overhauled the injury reporting. If you want to add the injury to the player, you would just tap this add injury button here at the top, and you're going to put it in for the player. Otherwise, you can also edit injuries that they put in. So with this group, we don't have any injuries yet, knock on wood, but it's going to tell you the availability of the squad. It's going to tell you what percentage of the injuries are non-contact and the current health. So these are all players that are not carrying an injury. The availability score, this is how many games the player is actually available to participate in after picking up an injury. So As a squad with a college team, I would say with 30 players, your goal is probably to have that above 90-95% availability. If you're doing that and most of your team's available, you're probably in pretty good shape. If it drops below that and you're picking up a lot of non-contact injuries, I would start to look at the training load over those weeks leading up to it, and maybe what the players had done on their own, things like that. So this is the squad status screen. Does anyone have any questions on this and how it works? No? Awesome. Okay. So let's jump to the calendar. So how you collect RPEs from players and how you have them rate themselves after training and all that fun stuff, that's going to come from putting the calendar in. So we've tried to make it pretty straightforward. All you're going to have to do is tap the calendar button. We have a lot of templates saved. Well, actually, we don't. On your account, when you create a new event, you can choose to save something as a template, which should help you populate everything quickly. So for example, if I click on this training one right here, it's going to quickly put in the location, the duration, the start time, the kit they're supposed to wear, the field number, when they're supposed to arrive. And then all I have to do is go in and tap all the dates that this event occurs. Okay, so I can really quickly put in a team schedule within, I would say, a couple minutes. It doesn't take too long. The setting that you're probably going to want to have turned on, especially as a college program, is set attending. So this is going to just set everyone to attending by default. I mean, usually with a college program, everyone's expected to be there all the time. You could set it to require response, but that's usually more for clubs that maybe don't know if a player is going to be there. So your default setting is probably going to be set everyone to attending. And then once the events are created, if I click on any of these, so if I click on an upcoming event, it's going to tell me players that are available. It's going to tell me how many goalkeepers. If I need to adjust any of these, so if I know this player is not going to be at training, I can swipe left to remove them. If I want to change their participation level, so if I know that this player right here has an injury, I can very quickly modify their injury level. So I can say they're out of training and they're not going to participate, and that's going to update this players available tab. So when you're planning your training sessions, you know exactly how many players are going to be there, how many goalkeepers you're going to have, and how many players are actually available for that session. And then at the top here, you're going to see any other relevant information about the event. So whether it's mandatory, the event kit, the periodization tab. So this is new. This is going to be very helpful when you're working with the big squad. So what you're going to see here, I can't demo it because we don't have a game in this particular team. But once you get your games going and you've added them to the schedule, when players are responding that they have played a certain number of minutes, it's going to break this the team down. It's going to tell you these players need a recovery session, these players can train normally, and these players probably need to be overloaded because they haven't done anything. So when you're working with a big squad like a college program, this is going to be very, very helpful, tapping on that periodization tab. The other thing you're going to see at the top here is the match day. So this particular training session today is match day -3. So it's going to give you some suggested intensities and durations. And the warm up you're going to see is also based on what you did the prior day. So in this particular situation, the team did not train yesterday. So the warm up today is going to be more extensive, meaning it's going to be a little bit longer, and we're going to give players a bit more time to get going before we get into the session. Does anyone have any questions on pre-training and any of the categories we've kind of laid out here? No? Awesome. Okay. So, and again, if you need to edit any of this, you can tap the edit button at the top, or if you need to edit a bunch of events at once, you can tap the select button here and you can select all the events you need to edit, and you can tap the edit button and you'll be able to quickly modify a bunch of events. When a game or a training session has ended, this is where you're going to see the summary of everything. So players are going to be notified that an event has finished and to put in their RPEs. We showed that with the player view before. If you need to remind them, you can tap this remind button here at the top. That's going to send a push notification out to everyone to put in their RPE. And down here, we're going to see the intensity that the players rated themselves for that event. We're going to see how they thought they played. So that's the value you see here. If they skipped it, it's just going to say NA. And if I want to rate any of these players, I'm going to tap the submit button, and I'm going to be able to either set them all to good, excellent, average, poor, and I can modify any of these individually if I need to. I can also add a comment. And at the bottom here, you're going to see who these ratings are available to. So right now, they're not visible to players, so it's just visible to me. If I wanted the players to see it, I can change that in settings, and the players are only going to be able to see their own score. They're not going to be able to see other players' scores. You can turn on a setting that they can see the team average if you want them to be able to see like it was overall a good session for the group or overall a poor session, but they're not going to be able to see the other players' individual scores. At the top here, there's a few new things we've added. So enjoyment level. So this can be turned on or off. This is anonymous feedback if players like training. It's off by default. If you'd like to collect it, it's going to pop up on that RPE screen when the players put in their post-event score. In this group, it's set to off. Video link. If you filmed training or if you have game film and you want to put it in here and you want the players to be able to access it, this is where you're going to put it. So you're going to tap that add video button and it's going to go live and the players are going to be able to see it. And then here at the end, this is the Beyond Pulse integration. So at the end of the week, if you guys use Beyond Pulse heart rate monitors, the players can authenticate through their settings. We have a tutorial on how to do this. And if you're using the monitors, you'll be able to see the data, just the average data. So I think it's distance traveled, active participation, average heart rate, and workload. So you'd be able to see that here. It's not going to go live until the end of the week. The players can still authenticate and set up their accounts, but we'll send a notification out to everyone when that update is live, and that's where it's going to be. And then as always, like if you need to edit any training, you need to delete it, you can always go to the table view, swipe to edit, swipe to delete. And here at the bottom, you're going to see upcoming load. So I would advise once your players are in to put all your training sessions in, put all your games in. That will allow this upcoming load to give you a sense of what's going to happen in the next few days and how your training session should adjust. So for example, if I have 2 or more games coming up in the next week, this is going to suggest that I don't overload players, that I just have a normal training session. If it's 3 or more, it's going to say we need to really reduce the load because it's going to be very high in the coming weeks, or the coming days, I should say. And down here, if any players have added any events they're doing on their own, so if they went for a run, if they played pickup, you'll be able to see those here. So obviously with a college program, hopefully they're not doing too much in season, but you may want some players who are maybe not in the team to do extra to keep up with the group, and you may want them to log that individually. So that's where that's gonna show. So a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions on any of that? All right, awesome. We'll keep chugging right along. So, hey, Mick, got your camera on? What's happening?
I'm here. I've been listening.
I know you've been
multitasking, labeling bottles and listening to the new updates and just making sure we're sorted.
Gotcha. No, it's all good. So the IDP section. So this is, I would say it's used a lot, but sometimes coaches are a little overwhelmed by this section, so I'll go through this quick. So these IDPs, these are based on the players and the position they play. So for example, if I go to actually I'm going to go to a player that doesn't have one because I don't want to embarrass them. So if I'm adding an evaluation for a player, this is what I'm going to see. So the evals are based on the position that the player plays. We'd like to make them fully custom in the future. But right now they're set right now. The players can do their own self-evaluations. So any of these categories, they can rate themselves. They can leave a comment. For me, when I'm working with new players coming in, I always like them to do a self-eval so I have a sense of where they're at. And in addition, they can also put in strengths and weaknesses. So these are fully custom. You can put in any strength you want, any weakness, they can describe it, set whatever the priority is, if it's a high priority, if it's low for them, and that will be contained in their IDP. So I find it very helpful to know, obviously, especially with a group that I haven't worked with before, where they view themselves. And so all they would have to do is they're going to go to, we're not going to save this, they're going to go to their player development screen and they're going to tap that add button at the top. They can add them once every 30 days. Same on the coach side. If you're adding one and you just want to save it and you don't want them to be able to see it, you can just save it as a draft and the player's not going to see it until you publish it for them, and then they'll be notified. And then the last section is the testing section. So this is also new. We're working through a couple bugs with this. I know a couple teams have had a little bit of difficulty putting in their test scores. So I'd advise save your test scores in an Excel sheet and then try and submit them. And if you run into a bug where it crashes, just let me know and we can look into it. So this is this is a fully custom test builder. You can build any test you want, whether it's a power test, endurance test, agility test. I'll show you the ones that I've created myself. So these are not preset. These are just ones that I created. So, we do airhead agility. We've got the 20-meter sprint. We've got the yo-yo test. We've got broad jump. We've got med ball toss. We have a juggling test. You can essentially create any test that you want. To add the tests is very simple. You would just go back to your calendar. You're going to go to add event, and you're going to choose a testing event. Once your tests are created, you can add them really quick. So if I know we're doing yo-yo, see if I can, there's yo-yo, and I know we're doing maybe 20-meter sprint. Once I create this event, when the event ends, I'm going to be able to enter all those scores just as if I was rating the player. So instead of rating them, I'm going to be able to just put in those scores for them. And the cool part about this is it's going to track it over the course of the season. So if you ever retest later in the year, so let me pull this group back up. Let's see. Let's reload this. Here we go. So if we go to any of these tests, so this is the last time this test was performed. So for this arrowhead agility test, we had the outfield player average was 8.42. The goalkeeper average was 8.9. And here I can see all the players, their scores, and what their RPEs were. So it's not going to affect RPE submission. If I tap here, I can enter all of the scores. So if you have a certain player who maybe didn't complete the test, you just swipe left and hit did not complete. And once all of these are entered, then you would hit submit. It's going to notify the players, and they're going to see their test scores. So if we go back again, go back to testing. So this is what the players would see. So if I let's go to a player who absolutely smashed their testing. So let's go Ava Suttles. So these are all the Ava's test scores. So her 20-meter sprint, she went down by 1/10 of a second. Her arrowhead went down by almost 4/10 of a second, and her yo-yo level 1 went up 3 stages to 31. So they'll be able to see their rank. They're going to be able to see the team average, and they're also going to be able to see their improvement from the prior score. So again, that's testing, fully custom. You can build any test you want, and then obviously enter the score and kind of do with it what you want. If you click on the pulse icon in the middle, this is going to give you a snapshot of your entire team and their most recent wellness report. So this can be a good way to just get a quick idea of where everyone is at. And then lastly is the leaderboard. So this is something you can turn on or off. You can leave it visible to players, or you can, hide it. So for this group, I've not actually worked with them, or I'm not working with them this season, so nothing's going to appear here. But there's an accountability section, which is really cool. So what the accountability score is, so this is asking them, did you put in your wellness reports every day? Are you putting in your RPEs after training? And are you attending training? So in a big team, if you want to get buy-in, one of the things that I've found is players being able to see everyone's, they're not going to see their actual scores, but they're going to see, are they doing it and are they using it? And if they're not, then there's a little bit of peer pressure and accountability there. So this is, a really good way to get players to buy in and do it. And obviously, if for whatever reason, they don't, it's clear to the group. You could also turn this leaderboard off, and you can just kind of keep it as a staff, to have for yourselves. So the best way to get buy-in from the players is to know that you are going to use the data. Okay, whether that's adjusting, for one player or for a group of players, but also knowing that if they're honest with what they submit, that they're not going to be, it's not going to be held against them. And ultimately, the goal is to keep everyone available, playing well, fit, not just at the beginning of the season, but ultimately when the games really matter in late September, October, and as you're getting ready for conference tournaments and hopefully the NCAA tournament as well. Does anyone have any questions about anything? So that's pretty much the app. I've gone through most of the features. I don't think there's too much else to talk about, but happy to give you guys a minute or two if there's a different question that you'd like to ask. No, all good. All right, awesome. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna save this recording. I'll send it out to everyone in a link. Hopefully it was helpful. And like I said, I try to make myself available as much as possible. If you have a question, if it's a particular situation, if you see a bug, if there's something that pops up, let me know, and I'm more than happy to engage with you and try and sort it out. And on the flip side, if you guys are finding success using SoccerPulse this season, share your success stories. Talk about how it's helping you. We try and keep the dev cost to a minimum, and we try and keep the cost of the app down. And most of that is through word of mouth and coaches spreading, hey, we had success with this, and that's how I don't need a huge marketing team to get this out to people. So best of luck with your seasons. And hopefully you have success, and as always, I'm a resource for you guys to use and reach out to if you need anything.
Appreciate
Awesome.
you, Matt. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Mick. Thanks, guys. Good luck with your seasons.